Well, thank you for that warm welcome. So first, I just want to take this in. It's been a little while since I've been at a Latina Leadership Summit. I was at the first one as moderator. And there's nothing for me more amazing than years later having the juxtaposed experience of early in my career I'd sit in the audience and I would have such respect and admiration for the keynote speakers who were women and Latinas, and now I get to stand up here and have such admiration and inspiration from seeing all of you in the audience. It's a very, very powerful thing. It speaks in part to being around a really long time. But even more so, it speaks to the progress that we're not only making, but the progress that each of you is making, and that's very, very profound. I thank Oscar and Maria and Adolfo for the initial introduction, and certainly really appreciative to American Express for maintaining what is now becoming part of the fabric of the National Society of Hispanic MBAs and Macy's partnership in really enabling us. So please let's give them a round of applause. This kind of dialogue is, I think, particularly profound because to be Latina is not a temporary thing. You know, in the Spanish language, and I have this thing about language, you know, in English, to be is just to be. In Spanish, there's ser and estar. Well, ser Latina is something that lives inside of your life and your being for a long time. I also want to recognize a really critical crew of folks that are here, because they make my life. My colleagues from Cigna, if you guys would stand up for a quick moment. Yes, I have my own posse. Thank you. I'm neither Jay-Z nor Beyonce, but, you know, I did want you to see these leaders because while I was introduced as the Chief Diversity Officer, not for a moment is the work that I do alone. I'm really fortunate and blessed to have a group of colleagues who are vested and invested and committed to this work from the business, from who they are and from what they do. And so it's a real honor for me to stand in the opportunity to have this conversation with you and to share with you not only my experiences, which have been many, have been awesome, have been challenging, but to really kind of look at what it is to be a leader. And I think it's true for women and for men. It's true whether you're Latino or Latina, or whether you come from our African American, Anglo, Asian community, or any other community, given the multicultural dimensions of our world. And it's really fascinating. I have the privilege of waking up each day, and the individuals who stood up, I'm really serious, they make a difference every day, not just in my life, but we all wake up to a mission that's about helping the customers we serve improve their health, well-being, and sense of security. And it's really a very powerful and provocative thing to know that the work you're doing isn't just work, but it's about making a difference in people's lives. Now, some of you may have seen my bio. Some of you have known me for quite some time because there are some old friends in the audience, and I've seen your faces. And I've been with Cigna for the last 2.5 years, but I've been a part of the Nishimba family for the last 19 years. Having joined in 1994, having been introduced to Nishimba 20 years ago, when I joined Merrill Lynch as the individual accountable for diversity recruiting in the investment banking and debt and equity markets. And becoming a part of Nishimba wasn't just being part of an association. It was becoming a part of a community, becoming a part of a very profound network. It's becoming part of a family. And so it's a real privilege that on this 8th occasion of the Latina Leadership Summit, we're talking about this topic called taking the reins, or as my mother would tell me, tomando la rienda. And I say that with real gusto because in reality, the context for taking the reins If you're like me, the first thing I thought of was Santa Claus. It's like, that's what he does with Rudolph and all the other ones. But I think as a mujer Latina, taking the reins really evokes a very powerful context for how we take responsibility for our lives. And note that I say take responsibility and not control. Because the greatest illusion is this thing called control. We work hard. We work hard in our careers. We've worked hard to assume our education. And out of complete confession to you guys, I neither have my MBA nor my undergraduate degree. And that's been a part of my journey. That's a part of who I am. And it's very much a part of how I am able to view the world differently. And so when I think about taking the reins, much like Santa Claus, I think about a journey that takes you around a world every day. And it may be the world of your work, it may be the world of your community, it may be literally traveling globally to different destinations and getting to know different cultures. But more than anything, it's about who you are that you bring into the environment that provokes change, that invites and inspires leadership, that enables the fulfillment of something that wouldn't have happened had you not have walked in. We often live life from this belief that if we plan hard enough, work hard enough, and execute on the plan, happiness will naturally follow. Well, I was 16 years old at Harvard. Pretty cool place. Love Cambridge. Very much committed to my Harvard peers. But by 17, I was no longer there. In life, there's this thing called circumstances that emerge. And I think many of you have probably had one or two circumstances that have occurred in your life. You know, the best laid plans that you have suddenly get thwarted, and you find yourself in the midst of a detour. You know, my plan was Harvard, graduate at 20, go to Harvard Law School, be an international lawyer by 23, and, you know, get out there, make money, and maybe retire by 35 and write movie scripts or manuscripts or something of that nature. So by 17, Plan B was clearly already moving, and I didn't know what Plan B was. How many 17-year-olds have a Plan B? You know? And I say that because we often get very frustrated when the plans that we set forth don't work. That's called life. Life will throw at you the unexpected. Life will always be what gets in your way, and life is also what's going to provide the opportunity to take the reins. Tomar la rienda, to create something that wasn't in your line of sight, that wasn't planned, and that wouldn't happen but for the choices you get to make in your life. And one of the things that I think we grow up inside of, particularly, you know, I think it's true in all cultures, but I think when we grow up, you know, as Latinas and as Latinos, there's a sense of responsibility we have. There's the responsibility for the family. There's the responsibility for our siblings, or for our parents, or for our grandparents, for our extended group of cousins. I happen to be 17 on leave of absence, the oldest of the female cousins, and in many ways the one who was treated as the promised child in the family. I was the prodigal child. I was brilliant. I was the one for whom life was easy. My dad was a doctor. My mom worked with him. I shouldn't have any issues. And all the cousins that I have, of which there are many that follow, always looked up to me. So when you're 17 and you're a Harvard dropout, what next?